friends, it's Jasmine, and I hope that you all are doing well. If you're new to my channel, welcome, and if you are a returning subscriber, it's good to see you back. In today's video, I want to talk about a couple of different things. I have a book review and recommendation for you, but I also want to talk about a little bit of the concept of the three souls in American traditional folkloric witchcraft. I want to talk about the red soul more specifically, and I want to talk about the concept of witch blood as it pertains to the book that I'm going to be recommending and reviewing. So this year for me has really been kind of an unexpected deep dive in my own red soul, in my own ancestry, and connecting with my biological father's side of the family, who I've really known very little about most of my life. I've made some other videos here on my channel kind of talking about that journey. So if you're interested in that, feel free to check out those videos. But I really want to touch on the craft aspect and sort of the orthodoxy and the orthopraxy of this three-soul paradigm that we have in our tradition. So a three-soul paradigm, from my understanding, is not at all unique to American folkloric traditional witchcraft, but it really does permeate a lot of the work. Below, I'm going to link a video from Lorelei over at Blade and Broom, where she breaks down all three souls really well, maybe better than I could. So I'm going to leave that video as a reference down in the description that you can go check out if you would like more extensive details about the three souls. The three souls, as I see them, make up sort of the three-part soul of the witch: red, white, and black. So our white soul, sometimes referred to as the holy guardian angel or our higher self, our starfire soul, the part of us that belongs to the heavens or the cosmos, that is the part of our soul that sort of, when we pass on, gets recycled by the universe, if you will. Then we have the concept known as the black soul, and the black soul is more connected to the terrestrial than it is the celestial. I think that's a really good way of putting it. Our witch's black soul is where our fetch spirit is stored. It's where our primal nature, our animalistic form, our earthly, our most true to us form resides. With the white soul being more celestial, it's still very much a part of us, but those innate aspects that make up someone's character and their quirks, those reside within the witch's black soul. Witch's black soul also kind of refers to this idea, especially within paranormal communities, of like haunting, because there's a belief that when we die, our black soul could go back into the fertile, rich soil and sort of mix into a mumbo jumbo reincarnation bit, similar to the white soul, but by going back into the anima of the world soul of the earth itself. Or our black soul could stay here and haunt the land, for better or worse. I think as a witch and as someone who does enjoy a bit of paranormal, though I shy away from using the term like ghost hunting, because as a witch, I just think that that's really odd. I mean, if one of my loved ones died horrifically in a place that became notorious, and then random strangers from all over came and kind of made a spectacle out of it, I think that that's kind of in poor taste. But I do think that the witch's black soul can kind of connect how we can simultaneously believe in the aspect of reincarnation, at the same time of believing in the underworld, at the same time in believing in physical manifestations of human spirits haunting people and places. So lastly, and the main topic of this video, is the red soul, sometimes also referred to as the bone soul, because this soul permeates our very marrow. And the bone soul, the red soul, the blood soul, is literally our ancestors. It is both our beloved dead, so our literal bloodline, you know, your mother and father and their mothers and fathers. And it gets more complicated as you go back because it multiplies, right? Like we have two sets, we have a mother and a father, and then we have grandparents, and then we have their grandparents and their so on and so forth. And so the tree sort of gets bigger as you go back. Which is also why I think that when we're talking about the concept of witch blood, I think it's very relevant, because at some point in time, you go back far enough through different parts of your family tree, you're going to find someone who was probably some sort of folk practitioner, even if they didn't necessarily classify themselves as a witch. Although the chances of you having a witch within your literal bloodline, I think are a lot higher than people make it out to be. So our beloved dead are the people that we are literally connected to by the blood that pumps through our veins, by the blood in our marrow, our literal ancestors. And to a certain extent, I think that can also very much include chosen family and family by law, because when there are those sorts of energetic exchanges and legal as well as spiritual bindings, I do think that that can very much affect the red soul. And I think that there's a whole topic there to be explored in regards to people like me who have been estranged from one whole side of their family, or people who have been adopted. I think that there's a lot there. And so I think limiting the red soul aspect of the beloved dead just to literal ancestors is only telling a part of that side of the story. And then the other half of our red soul is our mighty dead. The mighty dead could also be beloved dead if you are literally related to them, but the mighty dead also refers to the witches who have come before us. The mighty dead refers to, almost in a way, I feel like craft saints, influential people within the craft that have poured their red soul, have poured their blood, have poured their magic into the collective well of weird, of witchery that we benefit from today. So if you think about some people that could be like mighty dead, I often think of people like Robert Cochran, David Chumbley, I think of Gerald Gardner, I think of Doreen Valiente. There's a whole list of mighty dead that I have come up with, and I will probably link that also down below if you would like to just kind of check out some of those names. A lot of these people are people who have written books and led traditions, and so their work is out there for you to actually read or even maybe watch, like Sybil Leek. Look her up here on YouTube. Look up Gerald Gardner and Aleister Crowley here on YouTube and listen to their voices. I mean, that's the crazy cool thing that we have about YouTube now, is that it's become this very digital sort of grimoire in a way. That's at least how I look at it. I think about, myself, my own videos, as well as videos of my friends. And I think if we have YouTube in 25 years, what are the witches 25 years from now going to be thinking of the videos that we are making today? Concept of witch blood can be kind of controversial, because some people feel like it creates this narrative of an in crowd and an out crowd, or a chosen people. And we know that, like, historically, that sometimes can create some really nasty things, mixing like with Nazism and eugenics. And I think that's a really scary, dangerous place to interpret this concept. And I do not at all think that that is the true sort of takeaway from the concept of witch blood. Witch blood is our red soul. It makes up a big part of that. And I also would say that our red soul can come in through our poetic mythos as well. So let me talk to you about this book. It's Nathan King's book, who is a good Judy, a good son of mine, if you will. Shout out to Nathan King. Go check out his stuff. He's incredible. He published this book through Crossed Crow, I believe. Amazing publishing house. There's a lot of really cool things coming out from that publishing house. If you're interested in more sort of tradcraft literature, I would say definitely check out Crossed Crow. Nathan King wrote this book, Awakening the Witch Blood, which is very much all about what we're talking about in this video. About the red soul. We're talking about the concept of witch blood. We're talking about what that means in our belief as well as our practice. And I first sort of came into contact with this book, which I will say I was sent this book by Nathan. He was gracious enough to send me a copy to review. I did have him here on my channel for an interview. I will try to remember to link that video in the description down below as well. But I also told him that I would be making a full review of his work myself. Just to put it out there right off the bat, this book is a 10 out of 10 for me. And I would say that this is going to be a book that I'm going to be referring to and recommending other witches of our tradition to also check out, especially when it comes to understanding witch blood and that whole concept. When I first started coming in contact with this, I thought back to my own training within the three soul paradigm, and I thought of the red soul. I thought of ancestral veneration work. I thought of honoring our mighty dead and looking to the past to pull inspiration from the future. When I thought of this, I also thought of the mythopoetic sort of witch origin stories that some people put a lot of stock into. Some traditions are entirely centered around, and some people really don't pay much mind to them at all. I encourage you to think about these origin stories yourself. And, you know, if you want to interpret them literally or metaphorically, I think that that's your own journey. And the two that come to my mind off the cuff would definitely be the daughters of Cain and their Nephilim offspring, producing witches and witch blood via giants born from mortal women and angels, which honestly is a really metal story. It's really cool. You should definitely check that out. I think it's a really interesting sort of like biblical narrative that not a lot of people know. Honestly, the Bible is chock full of so much witchery, period. The other sort of mythopoetic origin story that's near and dear to my heart is, of course, the Gospel of Aradia. You can find lots of different interpretations of the witch's gospel. It was originally translated by Charles Leland in like 1989, I think. I can't remember. I'll correct it if I'm wrong here. But multiple other people have republished the grimoire. You can find a free copy of the original work as a PDF, as it is in public domain online. But Craig Spencer did a sort of annotated version that I really appreciate. I've done a book review of that book as well here on my channel. I will try to remember to link it down below. It's very good. If you're interested in the mysteries of Aradia, Diana, the moon goddess, being like her mother, and Lucifer, is he a fallen angel? Is he a Etruscan god of light? You know? Okay, those are her parents. Aradia is Diana onto earth. She's almost kind of like a witchy Jesus Messiah. Really cool story, very inspiring, and also a really good text to bring up anytime people tell you, oh, well, witchcraft isn't political, or why are you making this political? Another good book reference in line with those mysteries would be Laura Tempest Zaycroft's book, Aradia, a hand guide, or the new Aradia, a hand guide to magical resistance. I've also done a book review video about that. I'll try to link it down below. That's a really good book when it comes to working magic for political effects and creating change in the very real world for justice. Drawing on the myriad of beliefs from European witchcraft traditions, Nathan King has created an impressive guidebook combining mythology and folklore with operative rituals designed to enliven and quicken the metaphorical witch blood that courses through our veins. Learn the mysterious and often convoluted origins of the witch's power and dive deep into practice. Learn the secrets of magical trance work, techniques to raise magical power, and a plethora of unique spoken charms and spells, instructions for honoring the old witch gods, accompanying rituals of ancestral healing, and methods of inducing witch flight. This book is so much more than just witch blood. And I will say, maybe I judged a book by its cover a little bit. I was going into this thinking of the mythopoetic origins of witch blood. I was thinking of the red soul and maybe some ancestor veneration, but there really is a whole lot more in this book. And I think that Nathan has done a really good job of sort of mixing it all in this literary cauldron. So they're all very much tied to each other, all the different elements. I mean, it flows very cohesively, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily to the letter all just about Witchblood, because this book would be way smaller if it was. And this book is a fairly good size. It took me about 2-3 weeks to get through this. I did go on a road trip and I read a good amount of this while being a passenger princess on the road trip. But this is also a book that I feel like I need to read again. It's definitely a book that I think you need to take your time with and not just blaze through it. I feel like if I were to read this again, I would have other things jump out at me that maybe I missed the first time that I read it. A little bit about our good son, Nathan. Nathan King from Michigan is a witch, occultist, psychic, and high priest of the Minoan Brotherhood tradition. He spent a good deal of his magical life being trained in historic Salem, Massachusetts. He has been featured on Sci-Fi and Travel Channel during his time in the Witch City and has presented at several events within his field. So he's also someone I would recommend checking out. I think that he can be a very valuable resource. There's also a lot of other really good interview videos that he has done with other witches as well. So check that out. I'm going to try to make sure I also link his socials down below so you can go follow him and interact with him, ask him questions, tell him I sent you. As far as price-wise and how accessible this book is, I want to say it retails for like $20 or $25, which for a book of this size, I think is very accessible. I would say that this book, easily 10 out of 10, would recommend. I don't want to give too much away. We talked about a lot of points actually in the interview, so go check that out if you want more details. And also, I would say if you're interested in connecting with this trad witch 3-soul paradigm, this would be a really good part of your red soul work. This would be a really good way to connect better with your red soul, understand it better, and find ways to really put it into practice. Recommend this book for definitely a beginner practitioner, but also a more seasoned practitioner. There are things in this book that I think are beneficial for all witches, regardless of how long or how little we've practiced. And also learning and being committed to the first power of the witch's pyramid to know is a constant journey. It's a spiral journey, if you will. It's something that we continuously should be revisiting. We don't just read 4 books from the 90s, put them down and never read again, which that's not what we do here. No, ma'am. I hope that you all are well, healthy, blessed, living loudly and in full color. And until next time, blessed be, and I will see you in hell.
A broken and vandalized jar, the soul ignited and burns as a flame, turns all to ash with its village to blame.